Welcome to the PropLinq AI podcast, where we talk to founders, operators, and industry leaders reimagining real estate through smarter systems, sharper marketing, and intelligent tech. I'm Stuart Quintal, and I've been working in the prop tech industry for over 15 years across Australia and the Middle East, and now run an AI agency helping real estate teams around the world reduce noise, close faster, and grow with less waste. Today, I'm joined by Chris Lee, who's been in agencies for over 20 years, and he's currently, as he's called, the Chief Whip at Lancasters on the Isle of Wight, a market that's facing some unique dynamics with stock, pricing expectations and noise from the corporate end of town. We'll dig into what's really going on in the UK market and how he's navigating supply and how he's looking to AI and process improvements to scale smarter, not just bigger. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Now, I guess like with any sort of story, like let's start at the beginning or start at your journey, I guess, to how did you end up in real estate and what's kept you here?
Been in a estate agency, as we know, in the UK for just a little over 20 years. Got into it a little bit by accident, self-employed previously, had a bit of an accident that limited me physically, but really like sales, face-to-face negotiation, people, etc., etc. And a bit of nepotism. A friend of a friend ended up having a vacancy. Took to it like a duck to water, and have been managing branches and agencies for the last 15, 16 years.
Now, like you've said, you fell into the agency through some connections, friends and family connections, but tell us how about managing your first branch quite early in your like real estate agency career.
Yeah, I've found agency quite a natural process. Obviously there's a lot of detail in the background, but ultimately you're only ever dealing with people and, trying to put A with B and help them move on, whether that's for a sale or a rental. And started in a small independent, and so I was given a lot of responsibility quite early on. In a small team, you're expected to do pretty much everything, including push the broom around. And so had a good grounding and early experience of the whole business. During the first property crash that I was involved in with property in sort of around 2007, 2008, I moved across to a corporate, really as a sales negotiator, and manager went off long-term sick, sporting injury, funnily enough, and I was number two in the office, stepped up, took on managerial role, and sort of just grew from there. So again, right place, right time, but obviously had a fairly good skill set to be able to fill gaps temporarily, whilst I then went on to do some managerial training and all those sorts of bits and pieces. So yeah, I haven't really looked back since.
Now you sort of mentioned you've seen the 08 crash. I guess you've also seen the COVID spike, and now sort of I guess this market, which could call it a market reset or a market refresh, whatever it is. But what's different this time, do you think?
Like most markets, it's property or people led. At the moment, it's very much a buyer's market, lots and lots of stock, but no more volume of buyers. Obviously, COVID was very much the other way around. Zero stock, next to nothing at least, and lots and lots of buyers wanting to change location or downsizing, upsizing, whatever it might be, getting out of the city and whatnot. So it's just a different dynamic, different conversation, with buyers this time, who've got a lot of choice, and inevitably, in a buyer's market, price is absolutely key to get stock away. Problem currently is that there is such an inflated number of properties on the market with, again, inflated numbers. Still probably trying to hold on to those COVID numbers. If they got caught buying for a high price then and realise it's not quite the property for them today, how much of a loss are they willing to make or take, I should say, buying in a completely different market. So that's quite challenging. Price, as ever in agency, is always the driving factor.
Now, like if we sort of look at the local market or something, like you've been at Lancasters now for 10, 11 years or so.
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you, I guess, paint the picture of the Isle of Wight for our listeners? What makes it unique, or what makes it
Yeah, absolutely.
the market?
The Isle of Wight generally is a slightly cheaper area to large parts of the UK. Not all of it, obviously, but it's you get slightly more for your money here. There are a few premium postcodes within the island that you would pay slightly more for, but the same in any location really. 50% of all of its stock sell to somebody moving from the mainland to the island, to the Isle of Wight. There are quite a few people going back the other way, getting off the island and going to UK mainland. And then there are various pockets here on the island, as previously mentioned, that mainland buyers would normally gravitate towards. Here in Cowes, where our office is based, stock tends to be sort of 70, 80% to a mainland buyer. Another area on the island that is somewhere like Lake or Sandown is probably 70, 80% the other way, internal movements, etc. And you can buy very cheap places here that have got good accommodation, or you can spend multi-millions and have sprawling country estates and castles and things. So there is a good spectrum of type of property here. Life generally is a little bit slower paced than it is on the mainland, and a majority of people who choose to move to the island from the mainland want to, they don't need to necessarily. So they are a little bit more diligent in their purchase and how they go about finding property. A lot of stock here currently, lots of chimney pots, lots of agencies, so lots of competition as well.
Okay. What you said you've got a bit of an oversupply or lots of stock at the moment. What's driving that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my understanding of it is, or certainly our experience in the last 18 months, is that house price probably tops out here in October 22, and UK nationally is fallen by 5 or 6% in the last 18 months or so. House price has fallen. Last year there was a lot of stop-start, general election. Everybody tends to hesitate when there's a general election coming. What does that mean for me tomorrow, regardless of colour that gets in? I'm going to wait and see. So people naturally wait. And then new government said that there was going to be a big budget at the end of last year, with quite a few announcements about tax, stamp duty, council tax, all those sorts of things, interest rates and so on and so forth. And again, people at that point decide to wait and see what that means for them. House purchase tends to be their biggest investment or their greatest asset. Naturally, a lot of money at stake. So waiting to see what that means for them financially. At that point, the budget, they announced that there would be an increase in stamp duty here in the UK. And naturally, if you were going to complete on a property after April 2025, that would cost you quite a bit more money. So there was a bit of a rush on property towards the end of last year, early part of this. People wanting to secure a property, get a transaction through and save themselves a couple of £1,000s on stamp duty. But all of last year and most of the negativity and slow market, people this year have decided to do something different, and that is get their house on the market. So we've probably got, we certainly got 25% more stock available. With properties that remain available is another 50% choice to a buyer. Volume of buyers hasn't gone up, but volume of remaining stock is up by 50%, which is a lot of choice for a buyer, which naturally softens price. Price is really key at the moment. If you are motivated to get a property away, average selling time is circa 22 weeks, which best part of five and a bit months is a long time, and that's before you get into the legal compliance as far as solicitors to get you through to exchange of contracts. That's the market today, really, and challenge.
Now, the price drop of like 5 to 7%, is that across all segments, or are you seeing some segments that are either softer or higher?
I mean, that's the average across the board. Naturally, there will be types or price points that are a little bit more attractive. First-time buyers here on the island are really important to kickstart most chains, as they are anywhere, really. The probably the average first-time buyer on the island is purchasing somewhere up to about 200, 225, thereabouts. Obviously, there are other people that spend more than that as a first-time buyer, but that's really the sort of key area that property is achieving good numbers, as close to their asking price. Much beyond that, it's really a case of being as hard as you can on a number without giving money away or perceived to be giving money away. But great feedback from listed properties is that, really with all the levels of marketing that you can provide, social media and the likes of Rightmove and Zoopla and property portals, if that's not driving interest in the first 4 to 6 weeks, your price isn't right. Buyers have so many tools that they're available, at their disposal now to be able to establish whether they think it's a fair price. And with as much stock listed as there is, it's not like there's going to be just one type of property that you're interested in. There will be 10 of those, and if 9 of them are all on at X, and property 10's on at substantially more, guess what? They won't go and bother going and look at it because they're deem the motivation to be incorrect. Yeah.
I guess let's shift gears a bit into like operations. What does from a business perspective, what sort of your technology that you're using now, and where you're trying to go with that?
We have a relatively basic CRM here, much like most agencies, digital Rolodex really. Everything's generated there, letters, pro forma, emails, property matching, brochures and all that sort of stuff linked to our website as well. That's the day-to-day safety net really of holding all our information. We are quite large on social media. We do a lot of campaigns on Instagram, Facebook. We've just started to get into TikTok as well, which is great for initial exposure. That sort of coming soon type thing really works on that type of platform. Our own website, which is obviously a lot more detailed with information. And beyond that, really, it's just being proactive and, on the phone, talking to leads, talking to prospective clients and so on. So, yeah, it's I think certainly in the UK, for most agencies, still quite old-fashioned. We are trying to break the mould where we can with the likes of social media and our YouTube channel. I'm not aware of anybody else that goes to the length of detail that we do on our property videos and things like that. Certainly, it's little things. As ever, you're always trying to push the envelope as far as what's next in agency. Because let's face it, if you walk down the high street and there are 10 estate agents there to look in windows of, they all look the same. And they all just sell houses, right? Or let property. What really makes you stand out? For us, the social media side of things, but also holding a stock level that is stuff that we can really sell rather than chase that mystical, market share. Rather have 10 I can sell than 100 I can't, and then manage 90 that just are never going to sell because I've brought it to the market. So nothing really exceptional that stands out as far as tech, other than really what's available to most, and just trying to maximise all of those opportunities to expose property as far and as wide as possible.
Now, from a back office perspective, in like the admin side or follow-up tasks, do you think AI should be handling some of that aspect of your business?
I certainly think in agency there are lots of repetitive tasks that really should be dealt with by a press of a button rather than paying somebody, full wage to do that repetitive task. Follow-up things, certification and that sort of stuff that needs updating annually. Those sorts of things could and should be automated, I think, ultimately. But also the capture of information I know is really key. Data is a huge, and resourceful area at the moment that people will data is a commodity these days. So certainly I do think that there is. I think it has to be probably integrated properly, and I definitely see a place for it in agency. It's a real fine balance, I think, with knowing enough to let it do its thing, but also still have that personal connection because people buy from people ultimately. But if there is a good tech system in the background that can cope with that remedial, boring, mundane stuff, I'm all for it.
Now, from a competitive standpoint, you sort of mentioned some aspects of it before around, you'd rather have 10 quality listings rather than 100 that you can't sell. Now, in a market like yours, if you're pitching and you're prospecting or you're meeting vendors, they're meeting other agencies as well, and pricing becomes sort of a weapon and also a problem. How are you managing that?
That's the age-old question in any business, I think. Sometimes the best business you do is the business you turn down, because you can end up being a busy fool. And we are really hard on our fee, because let's face it, value and cost are not the same thing. And both those mean different things to different people. And there will always be our type of client, and there will always be types of client for the likes of the corporate agencies that want, quick, easy, whatever it might be. Our service is a little bit more bespoke. It's certainly a lot more personal. My mobile number is available to anyone who wants it, and I will have a conversation with them at an appropriate time that's convenient to them to talk about a problem they've got, or an issue they want fixing, or something they would like changed. Sunday afternoon, 4:00, I'm constantly having conversations with people about price, or negotiation that runs over into the weekend, and all those sorts of things. So that, as I said before, if you do walk the high street and you want to pick an agency, they all do the same thing on the face of it. It isn't until you get into the detail and scratch beyond the surface to find out really what the level of detail is that they provide. Having 10 properties that you can sell rather than 100 just to buy stock is really important, because it costs money to hold stock. You've got to advertise it. You've got to talk to people about it. You've got to put it in a window. You've got to advertise it. You've got to maybe do some paper advertising, and so on and so forth. And, ultimately, if you can't sell it, what's the point of having it? Because it's just going to cost you money, and it's not cheap running an agency. The property portals charge an absolute fortune to advertise every property that we've got that is a great search engine for buyers to use. Thousands and thousands a month. So, it's not a case of getting stock on cheap, getting it off quickly. The fine role of an agent is to achieve best price in a reasonable amount of time for our vendors. A little bit subjective, obviously, because time for one is quick, some for others it's, as long as it takes. But ultimately there's a marriage of the two, which is as much as really possible with a reasonable time frame. So you always need to know how to pitch yourself to a particular vendor, because their motivation will be different from the next. And if they are looking for something specific from an agency that we don't provide, then good luck with the next agent that comes in. As I said, sometimes the best business to do is to choose not to take the business. But that's the job, and you just got to be smart with the ones you sign up.
Most vendors, when we spoke, every 7 years they're transacting. It's similar, I guess, in Australia. I think it's moved up to like 9 years. But how do you educate a vendor if they're only transacting every 7 years?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's surprising how many people don't do a bit of research before they decide on an agent. They all do the same thing, so I'll just pick one of three. That type of thing, and most of the time it's are they going to sell it for the will they say they'll sell it for the best price, and is their fee the cheapest? And that's a really, I guess that's probably the wrong way to choose somebody to do the best job. For us, it is key to, when you get in front of someone, to really give them enough information, find out what makes them tick, and we are able to provide, within reason, a pretty bespoke service to each one of our vendors on that basis, because let's face it, everybody's journey is different. If they want to move quick, then we're going to have a chat about really how tight we are on price. If you're wanting to maximise your opportunity, you've got to understand that it probably won't be able to sell it tomorrow. And it's just those levels of conversation and detail that hopefully get you from A to B, everybody on the same page. Vendors have got to work with agents have got to work with the vendors, and it's got to be harmonious to get them from start to finish. And as long as everybody's on the same page, then really there shouldn't be too much of an issue. But being able to market yourself, so to speak, or us as an agency, again, the marketing, we hope, sets us apart from others, which will entice like-minded vendors that want that type of representation for their property. But ultimately, you will always miss people who don't ask enough questions at the outset, or if you're one of 10 in the yellow pages, for instance, and alphabetically you finish halfway down the list, maybe they never get to you. On that basis, will they have the best level of service? Maybe not. They might get lucky. They might just trip over the right agent for them and their journey. But ultimately, there's enough chimney pots out there that we have a good level of business, a good return, that we make a half decent living out of it.
Yeah, like you sort of mentioned, it takes around 22 weeks at the moment, but also it sounds like the properties that you are getting, you are ending up converting that, transacting on those. And some of those aspects, I guess, it revolves around trust, because you just sort of mentioned it, working with the vendor and the agency.
Yeah.
There's a level of communication, level of trust. What do you think is, from your aspect and Lancaster's as well, like what's driving that trust?
So majority of agencies, when you sign an agreement for them to sell your property, they will normally tie you in for a fixed period. There are some scary numbers out there as far as tie-in periods: 24 weeks, 18 weeks, 20 weeks, which is an inordinate amount of time. We don't sign you up for a period at all. It's a 0-week contract. We just get you to agree to pay us if we get you to exchange your contracts, on the basis that we'll do what we say we will. And if we don't, you're free to go somewhere else. So we're really at a point where, they've got to believe in what we say we'll do. And if we don't, then you're free to go somewhere else. So for us, if we do what we say we'll do, then we've got nothing to lose. If we're not performing, then go elsewhere.
Is that a common model now? Or, because, like, I know from an exclusivity perspective, or the lock-in, I guess, is something to, I guess, secure an agent's opportunity with a property. But what you're doing sounds more like a SaaS model. You can use us and stop. Is that a common model now?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to make sure. We've got to make sure 100% that the vendor's motivation is correct at that point. If they're just doing it for the jolly, then they're probably not the right client for us anyway. So there's a lot of trust both ways. In fairness, most people, when they engage an estate agent, are ready to go, really want to do it. There's the exception where things don't quite work out and the property ends up not selling, coming off the market complete. It's not for the want of trying, or we haven't done a good job. It's just something for them personally has changed, and they take it off the market and they don't move, which is fine. It's your house, do what you like. And at the end of the day, we're just marketeers. We're putting A in touch with B, and that they hand over keys, they move in and they move out. That's the job. And when people engage an agent, it is a big step to do that. And let's face it, it's not cheap to sell, move, and buy another house if that's what you're up to. And majority of people out there do require an agent to help and make that happen. So we do spend, a good time speaking to that particular vendor to establish that we're a good fit for them. They're a good fit for us. It's got to be harmonious, and you do have to kiss a few frogs. Sometimes it just doesn't pay off, right? But that's our, I don't know, our niche, if you like. We're able to read people pretty well. And if they want to sell, we'd love to sell for you. Look, I'm not going to tie you in for this, but I do expect a half decent fee when I get you there. And I don't bend on fee. We haven't done for years. So, and everybody that we sell for is, we're on Google Review. Have a look for yourselves. We're there. There are very, very, very few negatives, if any. I think there's 1 in 100 at the moment, which we're very proud of.
Okay. Now, when we look ahead to the future, so over the next 12 months, what's your focus?
For us, staffing is always important. You've got to have the right people to represent you in your ethos. So growth for us is definitely a strategy as far as business as ever. We're not looking for world domination, but we certainly want to be the best of the best. And you can only really do that with the right people around you. So we're quite careful about who we employ, and make sure that they are in line with everything that we like to do and portray. So that's important. Certainly, tech. We are always looking at. We want to be at the forefront of what's next in agency if we can. Years ago, floor plans were the new best thing. We want that next thing. We're always looking for that. As ever, there are markets all over the world that do things slightly differently. The way they operate, the legality of how you buy a property in different countries is slightly different. But ultimately, Australia is a really good place for us as far as what they do and what they can get away with. I know it's not quite the same here in the UK. Some of the stuff you guys say in Australia is not quite what we'll be able to say in the UK, etc. But that's just life generally. But there are always good bits and pieces that we will draw on and put our own twist on and those sorts of things. So I think ultimately, like anything in life at the moment, technology is always a big driver about behind growth and getting you there faster, or helping like AI, making the job easier, or taking up some of the workload, or doing more of the heavy lifting stuff, for sure.
Now, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one, either operational challenge or business problem, what would it be?
I don't think there's a major fix to be had. I think for us, the process from agreeing a sale to exchange of contracts, reducing that period of time would be my biggest wish in the process. Certainly, when mortgage companies are involved, the legal time that it takes for you to then own the property in the UK is a long time. Certainly in England, I think the average sale time from the point of offer to exchange of contracts is best part of 14 weeks at the moment, which is just too long. It's crazy.
Fairly long time, especially.
Yeah, nearly 4 months to confirm that you're happy to buy what they say they're selling and to confirm the detail. It's balmy. So I would like to reduce that time frame a lot. I get paid sooner then as well.
Of course. All right, Chris. It's been great having you on the podcast. Your insights into navigating the market, or this market, especially has been fantastic, and also you seem to be staying quite grounded, which more agencies need to hear. Now, if people want to learn more about Lancasters or get in touch with you, where should they go?
We are available, as most people are these days, via the web. So you can get us on the website, which is www.lancasters.org. UK 01983209020. We are at Lancaster Estate Agents on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And also you can email me direct, which is Chris, CHRIS, at lancasters.org. Love to hear from you.
Now, if you're in a market that's either oversupplied, overvalued, or just overcomplicated, just take a page out of Chris's playbook, where quality over quantity still works, and especially paired with better systems. Thanks again, Chris, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much. All the best.